The Two Crowns, or The Two Sacrificial Kings. I thought I could do a quick lecture on this painting, but I should not have underestimated the difficulty, the complexity, as I should have guessed from the number of elements in this painting. It's not the simplest one. It's rather busy and Baroque almost, although it's a Victorian painting. Um, a few AI content creators are producing many videos on famous paintings. I've noticed they are extremely sloppy and superficial analyses. We're going to listen to one about the Two Crowns, this painting, a Victorian painting by Sir Francis Bernard Dicksee. Dicksee. I thought my last name was funny. Most interpreters believe it depicts an unidentified medieval prince or king returning from a battlefield victory. Well, we'll listen to one AI commentator speak about this work. I'll make some scathing comments between his comments before I unleash my deeper analysis. Let's have a listen.
Medieval knight has won a battle, and his people welcome him with applause and flower petals. Everyone looks at him. Everyone celebrates his triumph.
Everyone looks at him. Wait a second. We'll see. We'll see. This soldier is not looking at him, can't see anything, I suspect. And when we see oh, there are the ladies again. This one is looking at the horse. These two are looking at him. This little girl. This one's not looking at him, and so on. Minor exaggeration there, or just sloppiness.
Everyone looks at him. Everyone celebrates his triumph. Yet he is not looking at anyone. His attention seems to be drawn elsewhere. If we pause for a moment to study the details of this painting, we notice something on the right side that goes almost completely unnoticed at first glance. Hidden in the shadows, a crucifix rises among the crowd. Christ is there, silent, ignored by everyone, except the knight. This detail completely changes the meaning of the painting. We are no longer looking at a glorious medieval parade, but at a disturbing reflection on the fleeting nature of victory and the contrast between human power and eternity. A message.
That's a lot of interpretation to hang on almost nothing. The fleeting nature of victory. Is that really what's going on in the king's mind? I don't think Christ was victorious, so he didn't, his victory wasn't short-lived. So what's the connection between the crucified Christ and the triumphant king? Something else must be there.
That 120 years after it was painted, we need to understand more than ever. To understand this work, we must place ourselves in the year 1900, in the final days of the Victorian era. At that time, the United Kingdom was a global power, proud of its past and obsessed with gazing into the mirror of history. And, curiously, one of the periods that most fascinated the Victorians was not their own, but the Middle Ages. Castles, crusades, and knights in shining armor functioned as a cultural myth. It was a way of imagining a glorious past that, for the British, connected with the idea of a strong,
not glorious past, imaginary past. It's all fiction. kind of half moon or moon crescent, and well, who knows, right? They can mix up their symbols, and keep us confused, digging holes to nowhere.
And Christian nation. Something quite similar to what we do today with superheroes. Even
Oh, wait a second. As I recall, a crescent moon this way also symbolizes the horns of an animal, of a prey animal or livestock. Yes, this will connect to the lecture. It's all connected. Unfortunately, this line of interpretation that I've mastered, human farming and cannibalism and the adrenochrome cult, makes so much sense. It's well, it's hard to argue when the evidence is everywhere.
quite similar to what we do today with superheroes. Even knowing they are not real, we like to see them as symbols of values, role models, and even aspirations.
Who is he talking about? What adult looks at superheroes as role models? This must be just AI talking out of its rear end.
Of what we wish to become. Frank Dicksee painted the two crowns in the midst of that atmosphere, and what we see in this painting is not a historical event. There is no specific battle behind the scene, nor a knight whose name we can identify. In truth, it was the artist's invention, a medieval fantasy that reflects the values of 1900 far more than those of the Middle Ages themselves.
Yeah, so the interpreter commentator wants this king to represent the glory of the British Empire. And he wants viewers to realize empires don't last forever. The only thing that lasts forever is Christianity, Jesus, God, hanging there on the crucifix. I don't think anyone looks at the painting that way. But you can, of course, and then miss all the evidence that will support my contrary alternative interpretation.
Now that we understand the context in which it was created, let us turn to the painting itself. One important detail to keep in mind is that this canvas measures more than 2 meters in height and almost 2 meters in width. It is a monumental oil painting, so large that you cannot take it in at a single glance.
Yeah, well, who cares about the size? We're looking at our screens. It will make perfect sense, regardless of the size or the reproduction quality we have. Well, I assume it's not too fuzzy on your end. That would be helpful.
That scale is part of what makes it so striking. This is not a work to be glanced at casually, but one that demands you stop and feel as though you are inside it.
Stop and feel as though you are inside it. This is the, I don't know, the idiot's way to interpret anything. Like, you can't understand literature by identifying with the characters in it. That way you just become one of the characters, I suppose. Feel. No, we're not into feeling. We're going to think about this in a moment.
At the center, dominating the entire composition, we find a knight mounted on a white steed that seems to shine with its own light. His armor
seems to shine with its own light. What the nonsense they say. It doesn't look luminous to me at all. Just very white.
Knight mounted on a white steed that seems to shine with its own light. His armor catches every glimmer as though it were designed to dazzle anyone who looks upon him. Around him, the atmosphere is festive. Ladies scatter flower petals that float through the air. The crowd...
Festive. Does she look festive?
presses together to watch him pass, and everything conveys the sense of a hero returning from victory. The scene is so vibrant that we can almost hear the cheers and feel the movement of the
No. This is not about this presentation. AI is not helping us understand or think. It's just asking us to hear the imaginary, feel the imaginary.
session. The color palette also reinforces this sensation. The warm tones of the dresses, the vivid reds, the golden hues, all stand in contrast with the pure white of the horse and the metallic gleam of the armor.
Not to mention the pure black of the crucified Jesus.
It's a visual explosion that evokes celebration, pride, and a moment where earthly glory seems to reach its peak. On a superficial reading, one might say this is an
That's all we get, unfortunately.
exaltation of victory and power, a near cinematic image that could easily be interpreted as a tribute to the grandeur of medieval chivalry. And yet, as I hinted earlier, its meaning goes far beyond that. While everything seems to shine, on the right side, hidden in the shadows, there is something almost no one notices at first glance. Looking closely, we see a dark silhouette rising among the crowd. It is a crucifix. Christ is there, nailed to the cross, the crown of thorns upon his head. No one in the crowd seems to look at him. No one, except the knight, who turns his gaze in that direction. Suddenly, the title of the work takes on an entirely different meaning. The two crowns. We are no longer only facing the golden crown that symbolizes power and victory. There is also the other crown, the crown of thorns with which Jesus was crucified, a symbol of sacrifice and eternity. And the knight seems aware of this duality. While everyone celebrates him, his gaze is not on the crowd nor on his triumph, but on the crucifix.
Well, does it really symbolize eternity? That's assuming the painters of these, or Sir Frank Dicksee was a Christian. It is a huge assumption to make, and I think the wrong one, already suggested by the very blackness with which Jesus is painted.
It's as if, in the midst of the clamor, he knows that his glory is fleeting, that no matter how dazzling the armor may be, it will one day rust, and that compared to eternity, human victory lasts only an instant. In Victorian England, humility before God was an essential value, and Dicksee shows us the knight as a reminder that even at the highest moment, man must acknowledge that there is something above him. And if you think about it, it's not so different from what we experience today. I'm sure at some point in your life, you've had a promotion, won an award, or reached a personal goal, and in that very moment you felt that, although it mattered, there are still greater things beyond your control. That is the true message of this painting. As expected.
So much beyond our control, seemingly. I think that's enough, more than I can bear. I will spare us the rest of that. Very creative interpretation based on very little evidence. I'm going to switch to the Wikipedia reproduction of this painting. It is always high quality there. One moment. Yeah. Not so close yet, please. There. And I need my notes. Un momento. Try to get both of these pictures working at the notes and pictures. Okay. Ready. Just to review. The Two Crowns by Sir Francis Bernard Dicksee is commonly understood to illustrate a king's triumphant return from battle. This is already a misunderstanding. Look at the woman on the balcony. She's casting flower petals without any sense of excitement. There you go. She is indifferent. And only two of the women are, well, two women and one girl are looking at him. Even they are not smiling or glowing with awe, as they should. As they should be if their king is returning from a battlefield victory. Yes, they look pleasant enough, but not quite celebrating. No. And these are the first reasons to dismiss the common interpretation of this painting. Now let's compare the faces of the three women in the bottom right quadrant. There you go. They have the same faces. Are they the same woman? Yes. Are they clones? What does this mean? Identical triplets? And the fourth woman, there she is. Could be another copy. What's the meaning of this? Is this the painter's way of saying that this scene never happened? That we must look, no, think deeper? Speaking of looking, two of the women are looking at the young prince. That one and this one. Apparently, you have to guess a little bit. But the woman in white is looking into the eye of his white horse. Its gaze is downcast, as if it were saddened by something. Apparently, it knows something without even looking at the crucifix. This downcast gaze caught the woman in white's attention. She understands something is wrong. Meanwhile, the prince's gaze was captured by the silhouette. No, by the actual statue of Christ's crucifixion. It looks like a silhouette to us. Naive interpreters claim it tells the prince that worldly power is short-lived. Well, Jesus was called the King of the Jews. And after he entered Jerusalem, just as this king enters this building, he was crucified. Maybe, just maybe, this king suddenly understands his future. That would explain his expression of consternation. It's not a look you expect from a person who realizes, oh yes, the very philosophical, existential realization that empires, kingdoms, dynasties don't last forever. They all know that, they don't care. They just want it to last a long time. Forever is probably more than they expect. They want a long time. But this is not the kind of expression you expect from someone who realizes his kingdom won't last forever. No, this is something a bit more serious. His life might not last forever. Oh dear, what a revelation. Additionally, the Christian perspective cannot explain why Jesus is not shining. His head is superimposed over a flag with a shining sunburst. That's not his light, nor is it real light. He's a dark silhouette to us. That should make Christian fans of his work wonder why he isn't a shining symbol of hope. Well, this king is not a king, no more than Jesus was ever a literal king. He was mockingly called the King of the Jews, and this king is a mockery of what we imagine kings to be. This should be obvious to people familiar with my work on sacrificial kings and on the history of war fakery. Now, even if wars were real, no ruling class would send kings or princes into battle. It's just silly talk. If you doubt my interpretation that this king did not return from battle and is not a king, please consider these questions. Would a king trained for battle not know how to hold a sword? Look at that grip on its sword. He's got his thumb up instead of towards the blade. Would a king ride a horse decorated with little metal jingles? Do we really want the enemy to hear us approaching with jingles? Is our goal to make the enemy laugh and giggle? Would a king wear armor that apparently has no joints and has ridiculous metal floral star shapes on each breast, chest? How odd. And odder yet is this strange device stuck on his chest. It looks like some kind of swivel lock. I have no idea. I'm not sure what to do with that. Like he's locked. Oh, maybe that's, yeah. He's locked in his armor. Who knows? Would a king in armor wear a crown instead of a helmet? Well, we could argue that, of course, this entire set of armor and the horse itself are all just for show. They are not meant for the battlefield. Somehow we're supposed to believe that these incredibly intricate works of metallurgy were just done for show, so the king could prance about and show off his beautiful armor. No, the armor is not fun to wear. No one wants to parade in armor, however shiny it might be. And you still wouldn't put silly jingles on the harness of your horse. And you still wouldn't hold the sword backwards. We are not looking at a triumphant return of a king from battle. We are looking at a man participating unknowingly in a human sacrifice ritual. He sees in the nearby statue of the crucified Christ an omen about his future. He too will be sacrificed and his body and blood consumed. His armor and horse were only for show. They made him feel important, while his masters quietly laughed at him. The entire scene is a big show in which the characters in the painting do not know how the plot ends. The women are also unknowingly engaged in their sacrifice ritual. The woman's white dress closely matches the color of the white horse. Why? Well, we could argue that a white dress indicates a wedding. Is she the bride? And are we in a wedding ceremony? Flower petals are sometimes cast upon the ground during weddings, and fake wedding ceremonies were one of the WCC's favorite pre-execution human sacrifice ceremonies. Brides and grooms are still married at church altars because altars were places of sacrifice. Or large chopping blocks, beasts and humans were tied to altars with halters. A halter is a strap or rope placed around the head of an animal, as in the case of this horse. Halter and altar. New question. Why does the woman's white dress match the color of the white horse? I believe this is kind of color play, word play. It implies that the woman is also an animal, not human. At least that's how she was viewed by the painter. Just an animal dressed in lovely clothes. For a moment. Secondly, look at the woman on the left side of the painting. Her dress matches the color of the prince's dress, prince's armor, excuse me. Yeah. Without the shine, but basically the same color. Why is that? She is also slated for sacrifice, as is the horse. The horse knows this, which is why it looks unhappy. And that expression caught the attention of the woman in the golden dress. See, she is looking. No, where is she looking? She's not looking. She's looking not at the prince's, the king's face. Well, we'll get there in a moment. Another mystery solved. The king is also connected to animals and therefore dehumanized. On his shoulder, on his shoulders is a mantle of ermine fur. Ermine fur has little spots. It's white, white as the horse. And those little black spots, we'll get back to them later. Ermines are from the weasel family. It's hardly something to make someone feel important or royal. I argue that in all paintings and performances in which kings are wearing ermine fur, it's actually meant to dehumanize and the king, to say he is also an animal, just as is true of all those chiefs wearing animal horns and feathers on their heads. It's a cannibal's joke. It's a cannibal's way of dehumanizing us. Now notice that the flag or banner behind Christ's head has golden spots. But the bottom part of this flag or banner has black spots. It's not quite white, but it has the black spots, just as the ermine fur. So again, the artist has drawn this connection, telling us that the crucified Jesus and the king are the same, essentially the same. Sacrificial kings. Now, let's look closely at the prince's lower body armor. We can see only one leg. Notice the size of the knee and the calf. What's visible of it? This is the full knee. This is the full leg. Nothing is covering. And they are too small to fit a human leg. This armor, leg armor, is too small to fit a normal human leg. The thigh, the same, although some of it is hidden behind this ornate saddle. It's clearly going to be too small. That might be why this woman on the left is looking perhaps at his other leg, and she seems a little discomforted, almost mild horror, at least consternation at the sight, probably of this king's very skinny, unnaturally skinny legs. I did a special on armor in the past, showing that armor was often too small to fit a normal human body. That human ribs were removed from men in order to make them fit in armor. And here I suspect some men were denied the freedom to use their legs. So they atrophied. Apparently this man never walked. This king. This kine, as I always remind you, king is a cryptogram, is a pun, cryptopun on the word kine, which means cattle. His sword is not a sword. Let's look closely. It has no guard to protect his hand. It is an ornate walking stick, I believe. Yeah, an ornate walking stick. Where were we? Now, let's think about the headwear in this painting. The king wears his pointy crown, and Jesus wears his pointy crown of thorns. Again, that's indicating that they are the same, or he will have the same fate. We might ask now, why a crown of thorns? So this Christian symbol of Jesus' suffering, they say, nothing more than that. No, it's much more than that. The word thorns is a crypto-pun on the word horns. They do look like little horns here. They are also visually similar, as I said. Thorns equals horns. Animals with horns are prey for the carnivorous cannibal class. Lastly, let's consider the woman in the top right, the very top right, the topmost, rightmost corner. Why did the artist cut off the top of her head? Was he careless? Or was he hinting at something? That he doesn't treat certain humans as humans. Well, we need another word. He doesn't treat humans as he treats nobles. Sir Dicksee is a sir. Perhaps part of the nobility, no? Finally, let's look at the spikes pointing diagonally. through this painting. Their points exactly match the same height as the king's head. What does that mean? I believe we understand this painting now. How should I, excuse me, how should I conclude? Perhaps you wonder why I present old evidence that a cannibal cult delights in deception and rules the world. I do this to inspire everyone to think and rethink, and I do it because knowing who rules us helps us understand why our world is unjust and cruel, full of deception and hoaxes, and why it wastes the lives of billions of people on useless education and useless jobs while we sink into poverty, disease, corporate government, public-private tyranny, immorality, and ignorance. Our poor children becoming more ignorant than we are, thanks to AI, the internet, the decay of the education system that never was really an education system. Knowing who our enemy is, we cannot imagine that the world they created for us will magically improve. And that realization should inspire us to plan a new world, one in which we can survive and thrive. I finally have my first book, at least the volume 1 of a book, up on Lulu's little bookstore. A funny name, isn't it? Lulu. Just replaced the 2 U's with double O's, and we have a British joke. Toilet, toilet, for the penis, pencil, pens. Yes. They're very funny people, but they won't like what I'm posting there. So please have a look. I'll soon be posting, is that the right word, posting? Putting more books there. Some in 2 versions, color and black and white. Some will take some time as I keep having to add material and revise, but Counterfeit Classics will be there soon. Criminal Bible will be there soon. Holy Spells is nearly there. Give me a couple days or more for the others.